Why are we so uncomfortable with villains just being villains? One thing I've noticed over the past few years is that fandoms have become really uncomfortable with villains simply being villains. Somewhere along the way, it started feeling like villains weren't allowed to just be bad anymore. If a character is cruel, manipulative, or downright evil, people immediately start searching for the tragic explanation that's going to make them secretly misunderstood. And don't get me wrong, I love a tragic backstory. Trauma, abuse, neglect, mental illness, all of those things can shape who someone becomes. They can explain why a character acts the way they do. What I don't understand is why that explanation always has to become an excuse. It feels like the conversation has shifted from, this character became this way because of what happened to them, to, well, because this happened to them, none of it's really their fault. And I think that misses the point of so many great villains. Jax from the Amazing Digital Circus is probably one of the clearest examples. Jax isn't just sarcastic or rude, he's intentionally cruel. He enjoys provoking people, manipulating situations, physically endangering the other circus members, and pushing them toward their breaking point because he finds it entertaining. That's not an accident. That's who he chooses to be. But the moment more of his past started coming to light, his neglect, homelessness, and the guilt surrounding his former friend, a huge part of the discussion shifted away from the people he hurts and toward the pain he carries. Suddenly, every cruel thing he does becomes a mask. He's protecting himself, he's lashing out, he's traumatized. And maybe there's truth to some of that, but none of it changes the fact that he still hurts people. A tragic past can make a villain more understandable without making them any less of a villain. Nagito komaeda is where I think this conversation becomes even more interesting. Nagito's life was objectively awful. He endured constant loss, isolation, and unimaginable suffering because of his luck cycle. He deserves sympathy for what happened to him. But that sympathy doesn't erase what he becomes. Nagito is an elitist fanatic who genuinely believes talent determines a person's worth. He manipulates his classmates, orchestrates a murder in the very first chapter, roots for killers when it serves his ideology, and eventually creates a plan that could have gotten almost everyone executed. The tragedy of Nagito isn't that he's secretly innocent. It's that someone who suffered so much became someone capable of causing so much suffering. Those two ideas don't contradict each other. They complete each other. Trauma isn't the only way fandoms soften villains, though. Sometimes all a character has to be is entertaining. Genocide Jack is a literal serial killer who's brutally murdered dozens of people. That's one of the defining aspects of her character. Yet because she's funny, over the top, and used as comic relief, people end up treating her like she's just quirky instead of genuinely horrifying. Toko's childhood neglect absolutely helps explain who she became, but it doesn't erase what Genocide Jack has done. Being entertaining doesn't make someone less dangerous any more than being traumatized strips someone of their agency. If anything, I think that's a genuinely insulting way to look at trauma. Then you have characters like Byakuya Togami, where people don't even need a tragic backstory, they just need an explanation. Yes, Byakuya's upbringing shaped him, but it doesn't erase his decision to deliberately tamper with a classmate's corpse just to make a murder trial more interesting. He knowingly risked innocent people's lives because he wanted to satisfy his own ego. Celestia Ludenburg is honestly my favorite example. I love Celeste because she's unapologetically selfish. She manipulates people, orchestrates a brutal double murder, frames an innocent classmate, and does it all because she wants enough money to buy a European castle and live out her fantasy. That's not noble. That's not self-defense. That's greed. And that's exactly what makes her such a compelling villain. She doesn't need a secret justification to be interesting. The point is that she's willing to sacrifice other people for her own dream. And that's really my issue with this mindset. The problem isn't liking villains. I love villains. Some of my favorite characters in fiction are objectively terrible people. The problem is feeling like you have to defend them. You don't have to prove your favorite villain was secretly right. You don't have to rewrite every horrible decision into a coping mechanism or convince everyone that their actions weren't really their fault. You can sympathize with a character's past while still acknowledging they're responsible for what they choose to do. Sometimes, the most interesting part of a villain isn't that they're secretly misunderstood. Sometimes it's that they aren't. Sometimes they're manipulative, sometimes they're selfish, sometimes they're cruel, sometimes they're simply bad people, and that's exactly what makes them unforgettable. Not every villain needs to be redeemed. Not every antagonist is a misunderstood victim. Sometimes they're just villains.